Hello all, this is lesson 3 in FRC Programming. Today we'll be covering switch statements, loops, and enums. So as always, here's the reference website. Feel free to use the link or scan the QR code for more reference. So let's begin with switch statements. Switch statements are an alternative to if-else statements. If-else statements we covered in the previous videos. And you would use a switch statement over an if-else statement if you have a lot of different conditions to check rather than one or two. As you can see here, we will pass in an input into the switch statement, and if the input is equal to Monday, then you will print out something. Tuesday, it'll do something else, and Wednesday, it'll also do something else. You see there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so it would be a lot better to make a switch statement than write an if, else if, else if, else if, all the way down. You need a break keyword in each case to exit once the code is done running. If, for example, the Monday section did not have a break, it would run the Monday code, then run the Tuesday code, then break, and you don't want that to happen. Sometimes though, if you want multiple cases to do the same thing, then it would be preferable. Yeah, there's also a default so that if it doesn't match any of these cases, then it'll do something else. Yeah, as you can see, you'd want to use a switch statement when you have a lot of different things to check. So, loops. There are two different main types of loops, for loops and while loops. We'll cover those in a second, but you'd basically want to use loops if you want to keep doing something repeatedly. And they all run off of conditionals. So, like, for example, if I run like a loop, I would want to say, okay, if my robot is not here, then I'm going to run the drive loop or whatever until my robot is there, at which point I would stop the loop. Yeah, a while loop basically says, while this conditional is true, then it'll execute the thing. You need something like a value plus plus here to actually increase the loop, to increase the value, because this loop runs off of while value is less than 10. If value is always less than 10, then it'll run the loop indefinitely and it will never stop, which could cause problems for your code. You want to increment the value so that the loop will eventually stop. A for loop is similar to a while loop, but it'll run for a set amount of time. There are three different parts in a for loop: the initialization of the variable, the conditional for when the variable stops, and what will happen to the variable as loop runs. So basically, this part is run once, and then these are run for the duration of the for loop. So it's going to create an I, and it's going to say, okay, is I less than 5? If I is less than 5, then increase I, then print out I, then increase I. So this runs before everything has happened. This runs once each time the loop is run, and this runs after this loop gets run. So this will print out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and once it reaches 5, you're going to say, oh, 5 is not less than 5, so I'm going to stop doing this. So loops aren't frequently used because they can pose issues if they go on for too long, and you'd usually want to use something else. But it's good to know how to program because it's a useful skill outside of robotics programming. So enums. Enums are a custom data type. You see earlier we have primitives such as ins, booleans, doubles, but enums are similar to strings where they're an object and you can create a custom data type. For example, you can make an enum representing all the different robotic subteams, because a robotic subteam wouldn't be a simple int or a boolean. You don't want to make its own different value for it. So you can see here, we are creating an enum called subteam, and then we're defining each of the values inside of it. And you want to make them all caps, and you want to put a new line just for convention. You don't have to do it, but it's a good practice to do so because it makes it a lot more readable. You can see here, we are creating a subteam variable because we made an enum subteam, and this subteam is going to be subteam.programming because you have to define that, okay, it's this variable's this value specifically. And you can also define specific data types within the subteam. So like the subteam's name would be programming if you want to do our subteam. You can also use enums in switch statements to execute specific code when a subteam is passed in. For example, you can make an enum for like the state a robot is in and say, if the robot is in this state, then do this thing. Or if the robot is in another state, then do something else. So yeah, a recap today is that switch statements are similar to if statements, but used when you have many things that you want to go through. There are also for and while loops, which aren't typically used but are good to know, and enums, which are a custom data type and can be used alongside switch statements to facilitate easier to facilitate doing things easier based on what state the robot is in. Thank you for listening.